Does your partner invalidate your children's feelings when they're trying to address a behavior like hitting? This is so common, and I'm willing to bet that they're not willing to read an article that you send them because you've sent them hundreds before and that hasn't worked. My name's Jodie Thornton, and I want to talk today about what we do when we agree with our partner that the behavior is not okay, that the hitting is not acceptable, but we don't appreciate the impact on our kids of that invalidating of the children's feelings. So this is one of those things that is it's really tricky, because we end up in this position where we can spend so much of our time trying to get our partner on the same page, trying to get them to parent the way we want to parent. And often that's because we've seen the research, we've seen the explanations of why this kind of parenting is more supportive of our children's development over time. And we can see the impact of not doing it in the way that we see is really important. We can see how that plays out for adults. We can see the link between our experiences as a child to some of the pain and dysfunction we might be experiencing as an adult. And when we can't get that through to our partner, it can feel like if we don't get them on the same page, that our children are not going to be okay. And it's especially tricky when it's one of these situations where we agree the behaviour needs to change, it's just the manner of how. And particularly for something like hitting, there are a lot of places that will say, look, it's a developmentally appropriate behaviour and it will pass. They'll grow out of it, it will pass. And it's more important to not engage in the negative cycle than it is to look at the hitting. And I want to talk through a few things about that today. So our first step is, I don't recommend trying to change your partner first. So there's a couple of reasons for this, is that when we focus on changing our partner's parenting, the vast majority of parents don't have the skills and experience around how do you validate someone's emotions even when the behavior is not okay. And so you see how it's a mirror, right? It's a mirror for our child's feelings are okay, but the hitting is not okay. The mirror is in our partner, their feelings about the hitting not being okay are valid, but it's the behavior of how they're reinforcing that with our child that is the not okay thing. And so ultimately, if we're trying to help our partner change their parenting without understanding what is it that is in the way of them making that shift, then we're doing to our partner exactly what we're telling our partner not to do to our children. We're expecting the partner to be able to function in a way that their baggage says that they can't, or their development. And now, obviously, as adults, it's a little bit of a different space for development. But as adults, the vast majority of us don't have the emotional and communication skills that, if in a healthy culture we would have developed as children. The vast majority of us just don't have it as adults. And so if this is a skill, the idea that you can stay calm when somebody else is behaving in a way that you don't appreciate, that's a skill that most of us don't have. And we're saying to our partner, you must behave in a way that is out of your reach. It's exactly the same thing as our partner saying to our child, you must stop hitting, which is a behavior that is out of your reach. You're not able to do it right now. And so the reason why I say let's not start with changing the behavior of your partner is because our partners, because they're older than our children by definition, they've got baggage from their decades of life that may need to be unpacked in order to help them to shift. And also, it is a little trickier to support somebody who is an adult to develop a behavior when they don't actually they don't see the benefit of that. So it can be done, absolutely 100% can be done, but when I work with parents who would like to change their parenting and also how their partner parents, we always start with how the parent who wants to change, we start with how they're parenting the child, and then once that's going in a way that works really well, then we shift into supporting the other parent. And that by that stage, the parent who's wanting to change, they have such a better skill set to be able to understand the difference between this is a big feeling I have, what is a need that I have, what is some baggage that I have that's in the way of me changing. And they know for each of those three things, what is it I'm going to do about it? How do I support this person to move through what they're going through? Once you've had some practice with that with the kids, then you have more of that skill, you have more of that confidence in your ability, which makes it a lot easier to support your partner to make the shift as well. So, very first thing we're going to do is validate the feeling. So if, say for example, your child has hit a sibling and your partner has come in and addressed it, and in a way that from your perspective is unkind and is invalidating their emotions, it's a personal choice whether you interrupt in that moment. And when I say personal choice, it's both on whether you are not triggered and you're able to do so calmly. It's also whether you feel like it's appropriate for you to step in that moment. And it's also a choice between you and your partner about how do we handle moments where one of us is overstepping the mark. Are we going to interrupt each other, or are we going to handle it later? So that's up to you to navigate. But if, say for example, it's not appropriate for you to step in, you can validate the feelings at a later time. It doesn't have to be in that very moment. And this is really crucial for us to build the kind of relationship with our child where it is normal that they come to us and talk to us about how they were feeling when something happened in the past. So that might be the past 20 minutes ago, or that might be the past 3 weeks ago. But we want them to be able to talk to us, because sometimes we might handle something in a way that's not good for them and we don't notice it. So we want them to come to us and say it. We also want this because this is a great way for us to support them in their relationships with other people. So they can come and say, hey, this thing happened at daycare, or this thing happened at school and I really feel uncomfortable about it and want to talk about it. And then it also means that it makes it less pressurized, that we don't have to do everything perfectly in the moment, because we know we can always talk about it after the fact. So at a time after the emotional invalidating is happening, you might bring up, hey sweetie, I noticed when you were hitting. Now I start with the emotions they were feeling before the behaviour happened. So we're first going to go, I noticed just before you hit your sister, I noticed that what? You're frustrated, you were angry, you didn't feel heard. What is it that you could see was going on? And if you can, it's great to cover both the feeling and the need. So you were feeling sad because you had nobody to play with, you wanted someone to have fun with. Or it might be you were feeling frustrated that no one was paying attention to what was important to you. See how we're covering both the feeling and the need. If you can do both, that's great, but one is helpful, even if it's not the other. And then we want to just check, did that resonate? Is that what was going on for your child? So you might ask, is that what was happening? Or you might even say, if you didn't know what was the feeling going on, you might say, sweetie, I'm not really sure what was happening for you just before you hit your sister. What was going on? And so you're just building that practice of like, your feelings are valid, your needs are valid. And by separating the feelings and needs that they have from the behaviour, and we're just going to talk about this for now, then that way we're going to get our child really comfortable that their feelings are valid no matter what anyone says, because that's a real key here. As much as we would love our partners to be 100% on board, ultimately, the vast majority of our culture does not validate feelings and needs, and it's across workplaces and friendship circles and anything you can think of. Our culture is just not that great at validating feelings and needs. And so while we might wish that our partner was on board and we might take steps to help them to get onto the same page, at the same time, you're supporting them through, my feelings are valid even when daddy doesn't agree with it. That's exactly the same as my feelings are valid even if my best friend doesn't agree with it, or even if my teacher says that I shouldn't feel this way. It's required for them to really feel confident in their own feelings. And so this is a great useful thing for your child that You know, we may choose for it to happen in a different way, but it's still a useful thing, so we want to do that. So we're validating those feelings, and it doesn't have to be right at that same moment. So the next thing we want to do is help your child to think about what is it that could have gotten the need met more effectively than hitting. So if they wanted someone to play with, even that, it's not really to the need level. Did they want someone to play with because they were wanting to have fun, or did they want someone to play with because they missed them, because they've been at school all day, right? And it's more of an emotional connection rather than needing to have fun. And so then once we can differentiate, like, what is the need that's driving the behavior, then we're looking for what is an action they could have taken that would have gotten the need met better than the hitting would have. So that practice, and this is the skill, the more you help your child build this skill over time, the more they can do that when you're not there, which is great for when they're with their other parent, when they're at daycare, at school, anywhere. They can actually move through, what is it that I'm really wanting right now, and what are my options for getting what I need. And then the last thing we're going to do is influence our parent, the other parent. So as I mentioned at the beginning, I recommend doing, like, you know, getting on the same page as like the last step of, once your parenting feels like fantastic, you feel confident that no matter what your partner does, your parenting is going to make sure that your child feels comfortable in their own feelings, they feel validated, that your connection is really strong, and that you know you're going to be able to help them face whatever they need to face in their own lives and really create like a resilient and happy life for themselves. I wait until then before we go through and start influencing your partner, but we can make little deposits along the way. So with the hitting, you might do something like explain, hey, I had a chat with our child earlier today, and it seemed like just before they were hitting, they were really frustrated that they weren't getting, they just were bored and they wanted to have fun. So I've explained that the options for them to have fun, you know, are this, and this. So, you know, to avoid them from hitting, because hitting's not really going to get them the fun that they want anyway, right? And so you see how I've explained this is that I'm showing that the child's thought process is, I'm stuck, and then I'm doing the thing that I think is most likely to get me what I need, but we both know that the hitting is never going to get them what they need. Like, it's incredibly rare that a hit is going, and I can't even think of any good example where a hit really actually does deliver on the need. So we're going through, this is the child's thought process. This is how I've explained to them that they can get that need met in a healthier way. And, you know, because I agree that hitting's not okay, right? And so that then we're validating this idea that we're taking action. We're not going to say that the hitting is just fine, that they're allowed to just treat people poorly for no reason, or even for any reason, like that treating people poorly is not something we're going to accept in our family. And we're just going through, this is giving them colour and movement, because our culture, if we think about how our culture assesses behaviour, we look at whether the behaviour is okay or not okay based on a bunch of like arbitrary rules that we have in our culture. And if that behaviour is not okay, you as the person have to stop that behaviour regardless of the cost to yourself, and you can expect no assistance in getting what it is that you need. That's how our culture kind of assesses behaviour for not just children but adults, no matter where we are. And so because of that, our partners are focusing on, is the behaviour okay or not okay? And then it needs to stop, because it's not okay, it just needs to stop, and we don't need to assist them. The more we can reinforce to our partner that my child was just trying to get this, and this is some options for them to be able to get that without the negative behaviour. And I agree, this behaviour is not okay. The more we reinforce that, the more it becomes part of how they start to think through, what does behaviour mean? And I would add, I said there was 3 points, but I'm going to be cheeky and add a fourth one. So I'm going to add that when you're talking through to your child about what has happened, making sure you're using language that they could use to explain themselves. So and I'm talking about before the hitting happens. So if they're feeling bored and they need some fun, and then because of that they end up hitting a sibling who doesn't want to play with them, by getting them to understand, so you were bored and you just really wanted someone to play with you urgently because you needed to have fun, we start to get our child to use the language with our partners to say, this is what I'm feeling, mum. This is what I'm feeling, dad. This is why, I need help, right? And the more they can do that, the vast majority of partners, even really traditional old school parenting approaches, the more a child can express, this is where I'm stuck and I need help, the healthier they're going to get a response back as well. And again, this is not just, some people worry that this is kind of overcompensating for poor parenting, but ultimately, in all of our relationships, whether it's with our friends, our partners, people we work with, for our kids, where they go to school and daycare, we want to be able to say, hey, I'm stuck over here, right? And we want to be able to work through problems together. And so this is a skill that your child requires in their lives, and they're just happening to learn it at this moment because their parent is not able to really see behind their intentions, right? So I hope this has been really helpful. So we started this with saying that we're going to validate our child's feelings, even if it's well after the fact of our partners invalidating their feelings. We're going to help our child to identify the need and look for options of how they might have met that need without the hitting. And we're going to influence our partners by giving them the insight into what steps led to what steps and how you're helping your child to change the behaviour. And the cheeky little add-in is helping your child to actually articulate what it is that they need. So I am going to be running a webinar on the 4th of August at 10 a.m. Sydney time, and we're going to be talking through in more detail how to do these processes of stopping your child, getting your child to stop hitting. So if this is something that you're facing and you'd really like to get some help on that, you can register for that webinar at jodithornton.com/hitting, and that during that webinar we'll go through these steps in detail, like how do you help your child really process those feelings and choose a behaviour that gets the need met without lashing out physically. If you have any questions at all, please feel free to pop them in the comments of this video, and I will see you next time.